Welcome back, and we're moving into our final segment where we have three of the stars from Bernice Yorke Institute of Learning. Of course, these are three of the top 25 performers for the primary school examinations. And we have with us Shaheed Perez, who placed 10th, Nahjah Perez, who also placed 10th, and our top performer for 2017, Curt Smith. And along with them, we have their principal, Sherry Ali. Good morning and welcome.
Morning.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Can you take a big sigh of relief now? So I want to start off by just talking about what your reactions were when you got your scores. You know, there's quite a bit of a weight and anxiety that builds when you're waiting for PSE results, for teachers as well, and schools and parents, but especially for the kids. Let's talk about what happened when you got your results. And we'll start with you first, Curt, because obviously as number one, that was a big moment.
Well, I couldn't believe that I came first. So, like when Miss Sherry just told me that I placed first for the whole country, I stayed silent. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I was just like taken aback.
Shell shocked.
Yeah.
You mean you didn't believe her?
Well, I wasn't sure what to do.
And 10th is still an amazing feat. I mean, there are billions of people in this country. I'm just kidding. But that's an amazing. How did you guys feel?
Well, just like Curt, I would say I was shocked for the first time.
So I was shocked. I actually cried when I got my result.
You're me. I would cry.
Now, what were you anticipating? Having sat the exam, you know, you have an expectation going in, and then you sit and you know maybe some questions were harder than you thought, easier than you thought. What were your expectations before you received your results? Did you expect to do so well?
Well, for me, I think I tried my hardest on that exam. So I thought I would do well, but not as well as coming in 10th for the whole country.
Yeah, I pushed myself a lot and I studied hard. So I expected I was going to do well, but not this well.
Well, I did my best, but to me the social studies gave me a little bit of problems. I wasn't sure if I would come in the top 25, but it turns out I did.
Now, Ms. Sherry, this is a great achievement for the school. Talk to us about the students who are, and the entire Standard 6 class and their performance.
Well, most of the students, they have been at our school since preschool. So, like I've said many times before, education and preparation for secondary education doesn't really begin in standard 5 or 6. It begins way down in the preschool division. It begins early childhood education is the most important facet of their education and their learning. It sets the stage for lifelong learning, and it develops good habits, good practices, and discipline. So basically that is the most important foundation for them to have. And all three of them are proud graduates of our preschool. So our preschool is the feeder for our lower and middle upper division, right? So they have passed through our preschool and they have gained success, and now it's even more success. They are very hardworking students. We try to ensure that it is not based on individual, but it's based on a group effort, because we like to say we leave no one behind. So it's basically that. We try to make sure that they're partnered off and they help one another. It's a lot of, not only teacher does the teaching, but we also have peer learning as well. And for this year, we have introduced, for this academic year, we have introduced technology into the classroom.
Well, we see the kids with headphones on. That's a different look for a classroom.
It's a flipped, what it's called is a flipped classroom. So we have basically met the students where they are, because we know today children learn differently. It's very different from when we were going to school. There were no cell phones, there were no social media, and that is their reality today. So we have to meet them where they are, and it's easier to capture their attention and their interest when we meet them on their playing field.
Now, guys, tell us about your experience at Bernice Yorke that you think has helped you to do so well in the PSC.
Well, I think for me, my experience was with the technology and how fast it was there. And our teacher sent us lots of slides and information that would take off the load of writing down notes every single time.
Okay.
So that helped a lot.
For you, Shaheed?
For me, the technology helped a lot too, because as 21st century kids, we're all about the technology. So actually having your work on a device, it actually makes you want to pay attention more and learn more stuff.
Okay. And for you, Curt?
Well, the slides help me a lot when studying, but also the games on the tablet, which help us to learn easier and more efficiently. That really improved it.
What were your preparations for the PSC? A lot of schools, once you hit standard 6 and sometimes even standard 5, there is an intense preparation period for this exam. Extra classes,
Mock exams.
mock exams. And it can be a lot for children of your age. What was your individual? And then you also have your parents' pressure. They laugh there, parents. Let's talk about your individual preparations, right? Let's start with you, Nahjah.
For me, I just had to pay attention in class, and Miss Ali would make us stay back until 3:30, and we would do mock exams after mock exams, and we would have Saturday classes. And my mom, she was right there behind me too, giving me a lot of encouragement, telling me she knows I will do good in the exam. Even though when the day of the exam came, I was a bit nervous, knowing that she thought I would do well, it made me do better.
Okay. You, Shaheed?
Well, for my class, our standard 6 and our standard 5 is joined together. So I think since standard 5, our teacher has been preparing us for the PSC. So we had a lot of practice to keep us going.
Also, from summer classes for standard 6, we got our first mock exam. So that was like a head start. Well, for me, all I had to do to get high in the PSC was like pay attention in class, do my homework properly, correctly, bring it to school on time.
Yeah. Miss Sherry, how do you strike the right balance with the kids? That you push them to do their best, but not push too hard that they burn out.
I think with the students, a lot of it has to do with inspiration, because we just can't be pushing children. They have to be inspired to learn, right? So you also have to spend a lot of time reaching them, in times counseling them. And the parental support is the most important part as well, because none of this can happen without parents actually supporting. So the parents play that most important fundamental role, because we are there as educators, but parents are also educators, and the most important, the nurturers of them. And it can't only be education, it also has to be, we nurture them, we understand them, we're patient with them, and then it doesn't begin at the upper division. It has to be way down below. They have to understand their strengths and weaknesses. They have to internalize, because that's a word I use a lot with them. You have to internalize, and you have to understand what's happening with you, your feelings, be able to express yourself, because if you are not understanding yourself, then you can't really branch out and go further. So it's not only education, it's also the support and the understanding of everyone in the society and community.
Do you know, I can tell that these are different students, because in a lot of primary schools, the children aren't as articulate as you guys are. What do you think makes Bernice Yorke different from other primary schools?
Well, I can't compare because I've only worked at Bernice Yorke Institute, but what I'd like to say is that we have had a high standard, and we try to maintain those high standards. We try to make improvements, for example, this year with the launch of technology in the classroom, but we try to stick to methods that work, right? And make sure that parents play an active role in their children's education. And like I said, early childhood education is the most important foundation.
And how do you gauge that those methods are working?
Well, remember, traditionally, tests and exams, but also as a teacher in the classroom, you have you can assess them by seeing how well they express themselves, right? For example, you can tell that, you know, they are well spoken, even though they are a bit shy this morning.
Yes.
Those are ways we can assess how they're doing, their performance, because it's not only on paper, but we can see, we can listen to how well they speak, how they carry themselves, how they handle situations, right? So those are ways that we can judge as well.
Now let's talk about the individual subjects, because we know that typically the first exam, people say, is easier than a second exam. What subjects were particularly difficult for you, and which ones did you find that you were able to manage well? Anybody who's ready to speak can go.
Well, for me, my two hardest subjects is social studies and language.
Oh, okay. You're a math brain, yeah. And so the math exam, which a lot of people struggle with, what was that like for you?
For the math, I'm very particular and very logical sometimes, so the math wasn't a big problem for me. I'm able to handle math really easy. It's just with expressing myself and the language, and also the history and geography in the social studies.
We have an idea of how your brain works now. What was your score in math?
My score in math was 100.
Wow. Okay. And for you, Nahjah?
For me, it was the same, language and social studies. Those are not my strongest subjects.
Okay. And so you were also very good in the math and science, the logical brains, yeah? Curt, you already told us a little bit earlier. You said you were worried about social studies.
Yeah. Social studies was my problem, and a little bit the language too.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what was going to be my grade for the language.
And how did you end up doing?
For the language, I got 95 overall.
And then your social studies that you were worried
I
about?
got 96.
Okay. So this is interesting because we usually hear the opposite. Because so there has to be something about your focus that perhaps is allowing for them to develop more in math and sciences. Is that a focus at Bernice Yorke?
Well, we focus on all the subject areas, but a major role in doing well in math is the ability to do language, right? Language is the key to be able to do any subject, because everything, English is the subject of testing. English is the subject of education, right? So if you do not master the English language, then you can't do any other subject. So everything hinges on English. What they're talking about is the expressive writing, because sometimes the ideas don't come to you. So yes.
Or under pressure.
Yes, under pressure, because it's more or less easy to write a letter, but it's a little bit more different to come up with the ideas to write that narrative writing.
Absolutely.
But to master the math, you have to master the English, the language, because you must be able to read, comprehend, analyze, and to do the problem solving. So if you're reading, but you're not understanding what you're reading, then you won't know what to do. So a lot of time is actually spent on language and making sure that they understand the comprehension and are able to analyze and problem solve.
What was the greatest challenge about writing your narratives? I mean, how did you, I could imagine, you know, you do a math problem, you have an idea if you've gotten it right because you have the know-how. But when you're writing, it's just like send out to the sky and hopefully you get back something good, right? So what was your own processes? And did you kind of doubt yourself as to whether or not you'd be able to do well in it?
Well, I think that for me, sometimes if you write something and it's your own piece of work, you say, oh, this song's good. Like, I might actually get a high grade, but then when you get back your grade, you say, oh.
I was wrong. Curt?
Well, for the PSE, I knew that I wrote like one of my best stories. So I thought I was going to get a high grade, but I didn't expect it to be that high.
For me, it was a bit challenging because I'm not that creative. So it was a bit challenging for me, and what you might like, others might not like it because everyone has their own opinion, so you don't really know.
Now, a lot of parents are watching, and you know, this is also, it's a very important time in children of your age in their lives. Those who do well, parents are celebrating. Those who didn't do so well, parents are struggling to understand what went wrong. Now, I want to ask you, did you balance out over the past year, at very least, studying and still having time to play and to socialize and to do other things?
Well, I would think that I kind of balanced it out a bit, but just to make sure that I knew I prepared better for my PSC. So I spent more time focusing on my work than on playing.
Yeah.
For me, I've had like a 50-50 because I can't like study too much, because to me I forget when I study too much. So I try not to study too much. I try to like even out my time.
What do you do?
Well, I'm someone that listens in class because I don't really learn by studying, I learn by listening. So I just try to listen in class, you know, as good as I can. And when I get home, maybe sometimes I might like read over my notes, like the areas that were challenging for me.
Yeah, but how do you spend your downtime? What do you do to relax?
Well, social media.
Okay, social media. There you go, Curt.
Well, I have somewhat of a like photogenic memory. So the way that I would learn is like in class. So I have to make sure that I stay focused inside of class. So I would still study at home sometimes, but try not to do too much. And I would never cram before the night of an exam.
And what do you do to let off steam and have some kind of balance?
Well, sometimes I would read or play games like on my device.
Okay.
I definitely don't want the public to leave with the idea that you're just smart kids, because you're definitely more than that. So tell us a little bit about what you aspire to be when you grow up.
Well, I wouldn't like to be a scientist, most of all, because I find science and living things are very fascinating. And that's why I'm very intrigued and outgoing about the science subject.
Okay.
For me, I would like to become a pediatric surgeon because I like helping little children. And to me, being a doctor and a surgeon, it helps a lot of people, because if someone is in need and they're sick, you can help them and make them feel better and give them what they actually want.
I would like to become a pilot because like how I'm good in math and science, I think it would be my best field to go in.
So, Ms. Sherry, tell us what this means for the school, having the kids do so well. How big is your class size, first of all?
Well, their class, the standard 6 is 17 students.
Okay, yeah. But what does this represent for the school?
Well, it represents continued success. We have maintained over the years because we continue to do well. So it just simply means that what we're doing the right thing, and we should stick with what we're doing. Not that we're not going to improve or add to, but the fundamental aspects of the way we teach needs to more or less remain the same.
And what would be your advice to others? Now, obviously, we know that there will be people who watch and say, you're a private school, you have a small class size, and typically private school children have more parental involvement than those who are in the public school system. But there are some practices that you've instituted in the school that I'm sure can be passed on into a different setting. What would those be?
Well, yes to all of that, but it's not just 17 students in the class. It's a little bigger because 5 and 6 are together. But yes, we do have a lot of parental support, but that would be a way to encourage parents to spend time with their children. Read to your child, have your child read to you, have a discussion, encourage speaking properly, because students might have a tendency, the way they speak is the way they write.
That's right.
So we have to ensure that we set good examples as parents. A lot of things still come back to parents because teachers work really hard and we can't do it all.
Yeah.
We set good examples, we're role models, but we also need parents too, and we want to encourage parents to be good role models for their children, set good examples, set good goals, support your children, support your school.
Yeah. All right. And what's next for you all? What high school are you going to? And
Well, I would go to SJC.
okay, already accepted, of course, I'm sure.
For me, SCA.
SJC. All right. Well, we hope to see more from you guys in the future. Congratulations on your achievement. You've worked very hard in conjunction with your school and your parents and the rest of your classmates. So we hope that you get an extra special treat for your PSE score. Any particular reward that you've gotten, Curt, as top performer?
Well, I have asked my parents for an iPhone.
And they said?
They're looking.
Life is real, right? Great job, everybody, and thank you for stopping in to share your experience. All right. We're going to go ahead and take our final break, and when we come back, we'll have our wrap.